think filing for bankruptcy means losing everything, your car, your house, your dignity, your precious belongings. Yeah, that's what most people think, but they're wrong. What if I told you filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy doesn't mean starting from zero, and you actually might be able to keep more than you think? So today I'm going to be breaking down one of the biggest misconceptions about bankruptcy and showing you how people just like you have filed without losing anything. You're about to learn about a key piece of the puzzle that nobody talks about, also known as bankruptcy exemptions. Think of them as your legal shield against financial doomsday. We're talking protection for your home, your car, and your personal essentials. If you're stressed about debt while equally terrified of losing everything, just take a breath and let's talk about what you actually get to keep. Now, before we dive into specifics, just as a heads up that these exemption numbers can change from time to time, so think of this video as a starting point for informational purpose, not kind of legal advice. So let's get the bad news out of the way first. In California, you can't double the exemption numbers just because you're married and filing jointly. California is one of the states that doesn't allow that in most cases. As a rule of thumb, there are both federal and state bankruptcy exemptions, but in California, you can't use the federal bankruptcy exemptions. You have to use California's. But unlike most states, you do get two options to choose from, the 704 system and the 703 system. So let's break them down. 704 is typically best if you have a lot of home equity. Now, for the 704's homestead exemption, anywhere from $361,000 to $722,000 in equity is protected, depending on where you live in California. That's a pretty big deal, especially if your home value has gone up quite a bit over the last few years. It also lets you protect up to $8,625 in vehicle equity and up to $10,950 worth of jewelry, heirlooms, and works of art that can be protected. Also, any tools and assets related to your trade worth up to $10,950 can be protected, or up to $21,900 if used by spouses in the same exact trade. Now, for retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs, also protected, and that's around $1.7 million worth of protection. Now, if you don't have a lot of home equity, you might be better off with the 703 system. But why? Because the wildcard exemption, which I'm going to explain in a minute. If you file using the 703 system, you would have up to $36,750 for the homestead exemption, but let's say you don't have any home equity. This would let you use that $36,750 toward any other personal property. So things like arts, electronics, collectibles, you name it. So just unlike 704, up to $8,625 in vehicle equity protected, you could also keep up to $2,175 in jewelry and $10,950 for tools of your trade. But household goods, appliances, and clothing, how does that work? Those are covered up to $925 per item. So overall, 703 is a bit more flexible than 704, which can be a lifesaver if your value is spread across different types of assets. If it's not crystal clear by now, the last thing they're trying to do is leave you with nothing. And again, just a reminder, these exemptions can change from time to time, and so it's important to check out the legal documents for California for the exact numbers. I'm going to include a link in the description below if you want to see specifics. But the bottom line is California bankruptcy exemptions are pretty great. However, the rules can be tricky. So if you're unsure about what applies to your situation, it may be smart to speak with a bankruptcy attorney. If you're trying to figure out what bankruptcy would actually look like for you, we can connect you with a vetted bankruptcy attorney for a free consultation. Zero pressure, just real answers tailored to your situation. You can even check out a comparison of other debt relief options too, based on your actual numbers. Just check out the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get started. Now, here's something a lot of people miss. If you've recently moved to a new state and you're thinking about filing bankruptcy, you might not qualify for the state's exemptions right away, and that's because of the 730-day rule and the 180-day rule. These rules ultimately decide which state's exemption laws apply to your case. So let's say you lived in Florida from January to August, then moved to Georgia mid-August, and then let's say it's January of the following year and you want to file for bankruptcy. Even though you live in Georgia now, you'd likely still have to use Florida's bankruptcy exemptions because you spent more time there during those 180 days prior to filing. But if for some reason it turns out you don't qualify for any state's rules based on those timeframes, you may not need to worry. You may still be able to use the federal bankruptcy exemptions instead. Now, here's one big thing. Not everyone qualifies for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You have to pass what's called the bankruptcy means test, which compares your income and expenses to your state's limits. Now, if you're above the limit, you might not qualify, but that's not actually the end of the road. We built a totally free calculator that looks at your actual numbers and helps you figure out if you might qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. It's private, easy to use, and doesn't even ask you for your email address unless you want to be contacted. You can also use it to connect with a local attorney if it makes sense for you. The link's in the description or scan the code on screen. And hey, even if you don't qualify for Chapter 7, you still have got options. There's Chapter 13 bankruptcy, debt consolidation loans, debt management, or even debt settlement programs. While there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to debt relief, there's always a path forward. Now let's say you're grappling between whether Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 makes the most sense for you, or even just wanting to understand what the actual difference is. You can check out this next video where we break it all down step by step in detail. Having a better understanding of your options can be the turning point to resetting your financial future and getting out of debt for good.